Welcome. You are here for the very first episode of the brand new Counseling Tips for Pastors and Ministry Leaders. And today we will have a short and sweet kickoff episode just to introduce you to the key questions. What is this all about, this podcast? Why is it going to be helpful to you? Why you should subscribe and add it into your library and take a few minutes with us on a regular basis? And who am I? Who are we to be hosting this new show? Again, this is the premiere episode of Counseling Tips for Pastors and Ministry Leaders. And let's start with the question of what? What is this about? Well, this is a podcast with a mission to help equip Christians who are in ministry to other people. So formally, at the most formal level, that will be pastors, preachers, people leading a congregation or a flock of Christians. But that also includes youth leaders, Bible study leaders, folks working at a faith-based nonprofit like myself. That's where I work, a faith-based nonprofit. And it includes all the way through to regular, everyday Christ followers. Because the Bible is clear that as soon as we give our lives to Jesus, we are ministering to the people around us. We are ministering with our words, with our actions. We are showing compassion and love and forgiveness and so many things that hurting people need. And so in this podcast, our goal is to equip and encourage every Christian who is in ministry to other people, to equip you particularly in the area of counseling skills. My husband is a pastor. I know many people who've been through different seminaries, all the programs, and often there is a small component around counseling and caring for that more pastoral, in-depth mental health relationship side of things. But often that is a very small focus of how pastors and ministry leaders are trained and equipped. And so our goal is to offer some wisdom and insight and encouragement. We are at least planning to have the podcast in audio and video, to have free resources through the blog on our website. And so, ultimately to have a ministry that is in part equipping and encouraging all of us as we follow Christ and seek to help the hurting people who are around us. This is not meant to be a podcast where there will be a lot of exposition of the Bible, teaching and preaching. We're not here to talk about evangelism or outreach or some of those particular areas of ministry, but specifically to talk about caring for people who are hurting, mental health and relationship and emotional struggles that the people we are ministering to are struggling with. So that is the what. Now let's think about the why. Well, if that what sounds helpful to you, then that's definitely a part of the why. But our goal, again, in this podcast is to equip and to encourage, but also, let's be honest, we are all busy. We want to do this in small chunks of time that are realistic. And part of the why, I think, comes back to who we are offering this ministry. So if you're watching the video, then I'll wave, hi. Let me talk just for a few minutes about who I am and who the nonprofit is that is sponsoring and hosting this new podcast. So my name is Jess Hayes, and I am a licensed professional counselor, as well as a licensed marriage and family therapist and a supervisor candidate in the state of South Carolina. And I am the director at a distinctly Christian nonprofit counseling center in the PD area of South Carolina. And that ministry is called iHope Christian Care and Counseling. I've been with iHope since the beginning, and just as far as the why and the who we are, ultimately our mission at the iHope Center is to bring hope and healing to our community through professional counseling and care that is rooted in biblical principles. So first and foremost, we are a counseling agency. Now, let's be clear, this podcast is not counseling. I am not your therapist. I don't know the ins and outs of your family life or your personal walk with the Lord or the ministry that you're serving in. But I do know a lot about mental health, a lot about relationships, and a lot about theology and intimacy with the Lord. And so obviously there's that clinical background that I am coming from and that iHope is emphasizing. But it has been a part of our vision since we started iHope Christian Care and Counseling to not only provide the direct care through professional counseling or life coaching, but also to equip the pastors and churches in our local community. Now, the reality of digital ministry is that this podcast can very easily reach people far beyond the PD area of South Carolina. And that's awesome. And that's great. And we trust that God is going to use this however he sees fit. But particularly if you are in our local area, if you can drive to Florence, if that's like within your range, then we welcome your referrals and your questions, and we would love to connect with you and support you personally, as well as your church or your ministry and the people that you are caring for. And I will say as well, because we are a nonprofit, if you're in South Carolina, we would love for you to check out the website, which is ihopeflorence.com, and maybe make a tax-deductible donation, which we use all of the donations to keep our clients' fees low. Check out the blog, check out the resources that are there. But again, through the podcast, we're intending for it to be audio and video. Life is busy, so we'll see how that goes. But some short and sweet, very practical, very biblically grounded mental health and relationship teaching, training, encouragement, support. We'll probably run around lots of different topics. But these next few episodes, we are going to kick off with a look at communication and a look at some common mental health struggles like depression and anxiety. And then have some episodes as well talking about marriage. And again, our goal is not to make you a counselor. This is not some accredited program by any means, anything like that, but to give you some information, some encouragement, and some practical help so that you can feel more and more confident that as you minister to the people in your church or in your community, people who are hurting and struggling and hopefully finding the victory that the Lord offers and promises, they're going to be turning to you, at least on occasion, for some sort of counseling type support. And that's where we want to equip you. So what are the next steps? Well, from here, I hope that you will subscribe to the show. It'll pop right up in your library, and check back in with us. Again, if you're in South Carolina, we would welcome you to learn more about us, consider a donation. And of course, in podcast world, we would love if you left a 5-star written review. Just encourage us, tell us what you're liking, tell us what you're hoping that we will talk about, and we will go from there. All right, friends. Well, welcome again to Counseling Tips for Pastors and Ministry Leaders, hosted by iHope Christian Care and Counseling. We'll talk to you next time.